Hi everyone. In the last video, you heard me saying that first truth table was a tautology, and this is now when we are going to define what a tautology is. I think you can imagine by now what it is, given that I said it's always true, so it's a tautology. We'll talk about tautologies, contradictions, contingencies, and we'll look at a couple of interesting videos, one from a movie, another from a real life situations where a situation where these concepts come into play. So a tautology is a proposition, and notice that I added a few different terms that you can find in different textbooks: proposition or a formula or a logical expression that is always true, regardless of the logic value of any atomic proposition that it contains. That's exactly the case that we had in the first truth table. Regardless of the values of P and Q, that equivalence was always true. There's also the concept of contradiction, which is a proposition or a formula or logical expression, you prefer to call it, that is always false regardless of the logical value of any atomic proposition that it contains. The negation of a tautology is always a contradiction. So the tautology is always true in any case. Negating that is going to result in always false in any case. The same way, a negation of a contradiction is always a tautology. A situation, a formula that is, or a logical expression or a proposition that is neither a tautology or a contradiction is called a contingency. And the contingency is a proposition that might be either true or false, depending on the logical value of any atomic propositions that it contains. Some examples: P or P is always equivalent to P. P and P is also always equivalent to P. This is called idempotence, and we'll see more properties later. A contradiction is a negation of P or not P, the negation of the principle of non-contradiction. So if you look here, you see P or not P. Well, it's almost obvious that it's either one thing or it's negation. So if P is true, not P is going to be false. But if P is true, this disjunction is immediately true. If P is false, not P is going to be true. So if this side is true, all of this is true. So this disjunction is always true, and P or not P is called the principle of non-contradiction. And its negation, because this is a tautology, its negation is going to be a contradiction. And contingencies, atomic value, an atomic proposition is a contingency. It can be true or false, so P, Q, and P or Q, it's going to depend on the values of P and Q. So P or Q, it's going to depend. So P is either true or false. Q is either true or false, true or false. And so it's true here, where it has truths. It's true here, it's false here. So there are situations that are true, situations that are false. So it's a contingency. Let's look at this video and see if we see a tautology here. So this is actually an example that you can find in some places of a tautology. The oranges taste like oranges. It does seem like an obvious fact. In fact, this is not a tautology for the simple reason that this is not an orange that tastes like an orange. The representation on the wall of the orange tastes like an orange. So these are two different propositions. This is not P and P. An orange tastes like an orange. an orange tastes like an orange would be an orange as the flavor of an orange. I'm not even sure if I could call it PNP, but it's not. In fact, what we have is the representation of an orange tastes like an orange, and that's P. And an orange tastes like an orange, and that's Q. And this is Q that is always true, but P could be false or true. The representation of the wall could not taste like an orange. I hope this has been clear for you. Now, this is a real-life scenario of a contingency. You see, there's going to be a contingency. So, Mark is placing a contingency here. If this happens, so he made type of an offer. Let me change the color here. Black, and I'll write it down here. So he places a situation where he says, okay, there's a contingency here, and if you do, if this happens and that happens, then I'm willing to do business with you. So what happens is only we'll have true, 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 false, true, true, false, false. I'm sorry, this is my Portuguese with verdadeiro, which is the word for true. True, true, false, false, true, false, true. Well, and there I go again, I'm sorry. True, false, true, false. So the things he said, they can all be true and false. The and is only going to be true if everything is true. If there's one false, it falls apart. Okay? So he is not lying because if this happens, this also happens. And if this is false, he does not do business. And there you go. So true, true. Now, when would he be lying? He would be lying if this happened and he decided not to do business anyway. Okay? So he is not lying, but this only happens in a contingent situation where A is true and B is true. So his sentence is not a contingency. His sentence is a tautology, is being honest, but the fact that he does business is a contingency because it depends on the value of A and B.